Hey, I'm Nick, and in this video, I talk with Mike Clear, director of Orange Kids with the organization called Orange, who partners with churches to provide strategy and curriculum and content for children's and student ministries. And we talk all about how Orange has shifted to more of a digital model. Now, they pioneered this years ago, almost 2 decades ago, when their curriculum was shared online only. But in recent years, they have made even more shifts online. And I think we as church leaders can learn from the moves they made and how quickly they made them and how they keep adjusting and changing with the times. And so in this video, you'll hear Mike talk all about those changes they made. And more importantly, you can learn how your church could partner with Orange to be able to share kids and student ministry content online to reach families. Now, this video is part of the new digital church course. It's a bonus content video, part of that course. If you're interested in helping your church leverage online better to reach families, check out newdigitalchurch.com and also subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this in the series. Well, hey, I'm Nick Blevins and I'm here with Mike Clear. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me, man.
You bet. Give us an introduction to you and your family and Orange and what you do for Orange.
Yeah. My name is Mike Clear, and I am married. My wife is Crystal, so she's crystal clear, which is always fun to say that every time for people who hear that for the very first time. We have 2 kids. I have a middle school son. His name is Nash. He's in 7th grade. I have a 4th grade daughter, Kennedy. And we have a dog named Scrappy Doo, a cat named Kiwi, and 2 guinea pigs named Macy and Coco. So that's our family, and we live just north of Atlanta, Georgia. And so I, for the last 7 years, have served as the executive director of children's strategy for Orange, which basically means that I get to work with a lot of amazing and creative people that help oversee the creation and development of content in the form of curriculum, also in the form of music, in the form of training materials for the KidMin community, in terms of parent resources, in terms of VBS. So it covers a lot of different spectrums, but a lot of amazing people that we get to collaborate and dream together and create stuff for the local church. So it's fun.
Yeah. And we want to talk about children's ministry online, digital, what Orange is doing to help churches do that well. So before we jump into like the specific digital parts, give us, for anybody who isn't familiar with the curriculum, tell us about Orange Kids curriculum, the strategy behind it.
Yeah, so we create content for the different ages and stages of a child's life. And so we have a preschool specific curriculum called First Look. And Brittany Compton is our director of First Look curriculum, and her team just do an amazing job in creating content in the way that preschoolers learn, in the way that they develop. And so they have specific content for babies, which is amazing because most people may think, you just have a baby in the nursery and you just make sure it doesn't cry. And if it poops, you change the diaper, and that's pretty much it. You give them back to the parents, but there's actually curriculum pieces that they put in there that volunteers can do with the babies. Very easy, tangible, practical stuff. There's curriculum for toddlers. There's some for 2s because that awkward transition of the 2-year-olds before they go into the 3s and 5s. So they have stuff specific for 2s, and they have stuff specific for 3 to 5. So they really look at every age and stage and break down content to be able to meet that child where they're at. And then we also have a elementary and preteen curriculum called 252 Kids, and 252 Kids preteen as well. And then there, again, we look at the way that kids learn. And so we try to tailor our content specific to that, but we also keep in mind the way that churches and the way that they're structured as well, because it's all over the place, right? Because you might have all of your K-5 together, and you might be a brand new church. You just have a handful of kids from kindergarten up through 5th grade. So we have a large group experience just for that called K-5 Starter. And then you might have churches that have K-5 together, like the church I was at in California. It was a bigger church, but because of our logistics, we only had one large group room. So K-5 was all together, but we had a little bit more production to that. So we have an experience created just for that called K-5 Plus. And then we have content specific for kindergarten through 3rd grade, and then content specific for preteen, and not just large group, but also small group. So again, Dan Scott and his team kind of rally that whole thing together, and they just do an amazing job. So through the curriculum, We have a music division that we do, that we create yearly. Every year we create a new worship CD to go along with our curriculum. We also create some fun music just to have fun in the car. We create family experiences. We have our VBS team. So there's a lot that we do, and trying to partner with the church to say, hey, whatever it is that you do, we hope that you would check us out, because we hope to have something that would help you effectively minister to kids and families, not just in your church, but in your community as well.
Yeah, and as we talk about digital, Orange in some ways pioneered that in the children's ministry and just curriculum world, because you guys were digital
Yeah.
from day one, back when, a lot of curriculum companies were still sending some kind of print thing and you get it in the mail, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They were the pioneer. I was actually a church leader at that time. I think it was way back in like 2001 or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And yeah, at that time you had to like do your quarterly orders, like with your checklist of like, I'll take this many student books and leader books and posters and this and that. And Reggie Joyner, who's our CEO, he and a small band of team came together, and they had content, and people were like, you should make this stuff public and available to churches. And a lot of people were saying you need to go the traditional route that everybody was going, but he was just like, nope, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a less expensive way and a more practical way to get this into the hands of as many people as possible. And so they went digital, and they flipped the switch. They were the first curriculum organization to offer that. And at that time, a lot of people were like, you're crazy. And, it wasn't without its bumps and bruises for sure, because technology then wasn't like technology is a part of our lives today. It was still new and fresh and undiscovered a bit, if you will. And now to see it, almost 20 years later, and everybody's digital, like if you're still ordering the physical stuff, that's probably not, it's not the norm anymore with most churches. It's the exception. So yeah, it's, how technology and how you adapt as a church, or how you adapt as a nonprofit organization like ourselves. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So how about talk us through what the pivot was like for you, as a lot of organizations had to change and adapt when COVID-19 shut down in-person gatherings for churches. And that meant different things for them, trying to figure out, okay, how do I still serve kids and students and families? And you guys adapted to help our churches, which we certainly appreciated. But what did that look like? What did you do? What are some of the pieces that you added or changed for that?
Yeah. I remember exactly where I was at. It was the second week of March, and COVID was making its rumblings into the northwestern part of the United States and just a few other places. And so we had a couple of our curriculum partners reach out to our Orange specialists and just say, hey, where we're at, we're not going to be able to meet probably for the next 2 or 3 weeks, which little did we know back then. And so they were like, is there anything that you would suggest and help us to do? And so at that time, it was just a few churches, and that was on a Monday. And then I think it was on that Wednesday is when it was starting to spread. And I think it was the NBA. There was two major
College
sports
basketball.
organizations.
College basketball shut down
That's
on
what
like
it
a
was.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep. When they shut that down, like that was the domino that fell, that then the call started coming in saying, we don't know what to do. All of a sudden now we're shut down, our governor, our mayor, our state, whatever it may be. And so we huddled together in one of our meeting rooms on the second floor. And we were just like, okay, what do we need to do here? We need to help them out and create some sort of experience for them that they can share virtually. So what we did is that we looked at the pieces that we already had that were existing, that were available in our media package. So we have our curriculum subscription, and then there's a whole media side to that as well that you can add onto your curriculum. So we looked at what was in there, and we said, okay, there's the Bible story, obviously, there's the intro, there's the outro, here's the worship song for the month, here's a countdown video, here's some motion graphics. Let's put all these things together instead of giving everybody the pieces to it and just say, hey, here you go, figure it out. We wanted to go ahead and do the work for them, because again, this was so fresh and this was so new, and everybody was scrambling and trying to figure it out. And most churches at that time probably did not have any sort of online presence when it came to kids ministry. A lot of churches put their Sunday morning adult services online, but they did not have anything for preschool or for kids or for preteen. And so everybody was just like, what do we do? And so we put all that stuff together, and we put it into one file. So it was basically all you had to do was copy and paste. We put it on a Vimeo link, and you could share that with whatever. And we gave that to these partners that were asking. But then I remember it's like, okay, give this to, the 20 or 40 people that were asking for it. But then as it started going on, we just made a decision to say, you know what we want to do. And the thing I love about Orange is that Orange has always been probably the most generous organization that I've ever worked with, and that we truly have a heart for the local church, and we truly want to do whatever we can, and we never want to let resources get in the way of being able to help a church effectively reach the families in their church or their community. And so we made a decision there to say, you know what we need to do? We have this great video link now, and it's like a 15, 20-minute experience that churches can send out, and we don't want to just help our partners. We want to help, and we want to be for the KidMin community as a whole. And so we made a decision, and we just said, here's what we're going to do. Okay. We're going to lift the copyright restrictions on everything that we have right now, from music to our curriculum to our video resources, and churches can do whatever they need to do to reach families in their community. Also, this new online experience link that we put together, we're not just going to make it available to our curriculum and media package partners. We're going to make this available to whoever. And so we pasted that link, and we put together some verbiage, and we posted that not just on our platforms, but we went to all the KidMin platforms that we could find. And we just said, hey, if you're looking, if you're in need, we want you to know that we're for you, we're here for you, and here's this resource that we hope will bless you. And that was right out of the gate. On that Wednesday when the NCAA canceled, that Thursday, we released everything to that. And it was exciting to see. I mean, because again, we're just like, what is happening right now? And so to be able to see how we were able to help churches during this time. And again, at that time, Nick, it was like, okay, it's just going to be a week or two. I think we're, let's just help them out. And so, but as this developed on, and we were producing these things, again, we were producing this stuff 1 week at a time. We had no idea like this was going to be our new normal. We were just like, okay, let's do this 1 week. Let's get it out there to as many people, and let's just see what happens next week. And then everybody who used it that Monday, they were like, we're still closed down for another week or two. Are you going to do this link again? And we were like, yes, of course. And so we were like, okay, what worked about this resource? What didn't work? What do we need to adjust? What do we need to change? And then we created the one for the next week. And then we just did it a week at a time, because again, we didn't know. And now we're producing that link a month at a time. It's now a part of our curriculum to do that, to help churches have an online experience. So really proud of our team and just how they came together. And there was no hesitation in that we need to make this. We need to make it available for everybody, and it needs to be free and no copyright restrictions. Just do what you need to do to reach families. So that's what we did out of the gate. And then a couple of weeks after that, we discovered, like, church leaders were saying, hey, the video thing is great. But at that time, kids were like, online learning was starting, and all of a sudden, all the Zoom meetings that parents were having, because now parents were staying home. And so it was becoming just another video to watch. It was a great video, and it was a video that would help them, grow in their faith, but it was a video. So we were like, okay, how can we get parents to not just, click on the link and put on the TV and walk away? We want parents to be a part of that experience. So we put together a parent guide specific to the video. So what our teams did is they went back and found an activity, a small group activity from our curriculum, and then they kind of rephrased it and they re-edited it to give it a parenting voice instead of a small group leader voice. And so basically this guide, the one-page guide, was designed that had the Bible story reference, so that if they wanted to look it up, for themselves after the video with their kids, they had the memory verse so they could go over that with their kid. It had the bottom line or the key question, and then it had an activity. It was a simple activity that utilized resources around the house. So it was like, hey, for this activity, find a pair of socks and a laundry basket, and most people, I hope, are going to have those, to do that. Or it was like, get a piece of paper, and some activities didn't require any supplies, but it was utilizing supplies that you would have around your house. And it was an activity that they could do that was based upon the topic that we were talking about in our Bible story. And then we had a section called Talk About the Bible Story, to ask your kids these questions. And then it had a prayer that we scripted out that parents could do. Because again, we wanted to not be able to say, we didn't want to tell churches, hey, just tell your parents to watch the video and then talk about the Bible story with their kids afterwards. We needed to give them things to do. And we also, when we said talk about the Bible story, we need to give them words to say. And it's like, hey, if you don't know what to say, then say this, and close in prayer. Well, I've never prayed with my kid before. That's okay. Just say this right here. So we created these parent guides a couple of weeks into this pandemic to go along with the online video experience to make it a shared experience that parents could do with their kids. And so those were great. And again, we were creating those 1 week at a time to go along with that. And again, so we're creating these new parent guides, we're creating these new online experiences, and we're doing this ×3 because we have one specific for preschool, and then we have one specific for kids, and then we have a totally different experience designed for preteen as well. So we're creating, 3 different parent guides, 3 different online experiences that are all unique, doing that every week. And we're just like, okay, what's happening? Okay, we're still going to be doing this. Okay, this is now going to last longer than a month. Now we're into month 2. Okay, wow, this is going on for a while. This is month 3. And what we discovered in month 3 was that, again, paying attention to what our partners are saying, paying attention to what the KidMin community as a whole is experiencing. Again, during this whole time, we're giving this stuff away for free. Just say, do what you need to do. We understand this is so weird. This is weird for you. This is weird for us. This is weird for the world, right? So we're trying to figure this out. But a lot of churches, my guess would be, is that they started experiencing a decline in engagement because those first 2 or 3, 4 weeks, when the shutdown orders were given and churches weren't meeting anymore, it was like the greatest time alive to be a children's pastor, because like parents were like, what do you got? And like, here's the online experience thing, or here's our own thing, or here's what it is. And parents were like, yes, we're focused. Tell us what to do, kind of a thing. And there was high engagement. You probably saw this at your church, Nick. Like we just heard this from leaders all over the country. Like engagement numbers were through the roof. And it was like, this is the new way. This is the way of the church. And this is where the future is. And then like 2 or 3 months into that, it was like this slow fade of like, it was just like Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after video after whatever. Even after the parent guys were great, it was just like parents were just fatigued and parents were tired. And it was just like, we don't know what to do anymore. And so, in listening to some church partners, what some leaders were doing and finding great success in, is the personal contact with kids. And it's tricky when, in student ministry, that looks one way. In kids ministry, that looks a different way because there's all sorts of safety protocols and things that you got to think about. But church leaders were experimenting with some Zoom calls with kids and getting their small groups together. So a small group leader would have 5 or 6 or 10 of their kids on the Zoom call. And obviously their parents may be present with them, or the parents would be right there on the side with them and let them do that. And it kind of rejuvenated their interaction and their engagement with these families again, and families' engagement with their churches again. So we were like, okay, that's interesting. We should probably create something to help you do that more. And so we started these online small group activities specific for Zoom calls. So again, when churches first started with Zoom calls with kids in small groups, it was just like, hey, I just wanted to say hi, and I miss your face, and I hope to see you soon. And then when it became a reality that you're not going to see them soon, at least live and in person, it was like, okay, we got to move beyond just getting on these Zoom calls to say, hey, because trying to wrangle kids on the Zoom call is a challenge to begin with, right? Like, it's just like kids are distracted, like up in the camera, what's this right here? And, dogs interrupting or fighting happening, whatever it may be. And so we were like, okay, let's create something for you to do. And so we created these activities for preschool and for kids and for preteen to kind of say, hey, if you're just going to meet with kids for 15 minutes or 20 minutes on a Zoom call, which is probably a good recommended time because you're not going to hold their attention much longer than that. We want to help you be intentional with your time, and we want to help you be intentional with your words. So here's an activity that you could do. Here's a game that you could do on your Zoom call that relates back to the Bible story, the online experience that we created. And some ministry leaders would create kind of a mini service with these Zoom calls where they would watch the video together as a group, and they would show that in their Zoom call, and then they would do their online small group activity together as well. So unique ways. So as the church was pivoting and trying to find new ways to engage families, we want to be listening and hearing and saying, okay, if that's working for you, or if you're doing something new with our content, let us help you do that more, and we'll create that. And so it's been fun as an organization to help churches navigate during this time, from parent guides to online experiences for kids to online small groups for kids, Zoom calls and all that. And who knows what we'll be creating in the next month or two, right? Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that somebody might watch this video, the week it posts, and they're up to date on everything you just said. But somebody else might watch it a year from now, and maybe some
Yeah.
things have changed. But it seems to me like you guys, you want to be digital online, you want to equip churches to do that. So it might look a little different. Some of the tactics might change. But am I accurate in saying you guys are going to embrace that just like some churches are embracing that for the long haul?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think churches have to. I think no matter where we live at in the state of Georgia, the church I attend isn't meeting again in person till next year. They've made that decision to say we just can't guarantee your safety, and so we're not going to be meeting. Whereas the church right down the road from that church, they are meeting together. So it's like churches are always they're going to be it's going to be a hybrid of both, I think. And so I think our strategy as KidMin leaders going forward is like, well, are you doing digital still or are you doing live? And I think it's like, yes, I'm doing both. And it's always going to be a both and because even if you're starting to meet back live, what we're seeing from churches across the country is that you're only getting a fraction of the people that you used to get. You're getting anywhere from 20, maybe 40%, maybe 50%, but that's being very generous right now. And so you might have those small percentage of kids back in your ministry, which is great, and to be able to see their faces again and see those families, but you can't forget about those other families who maybe don't feel comfortable or don't feel safe yet coming back to that. And then we would even say as Orange, our heartbeat has always been for the unchurched family. So it's like, yeah, if you have the families in your church who are there live, the families who engage with you digitally, but don't forget about those families who may have never stepped foot in your door and maybe never will, but every parent wants to be a good parent and wants to help their kid succeed and to grow. And I think there's a faith component to that, even if they don't have a faith background. And so we want to be mindful of that as Orange as well. So yeah, I would say that's got to be our strategy going forward, is to think about both and to do both well. It's going to cause a church. It's caused us to rethink how we organize, to feel like how we organize our resources, how we organize our teams and our staff. And yeah, so again, we're always being mindful. Like you said, if you're watching this a year from now, my hope is that we've added 2 or 3 or 4 more resources to adapt to our new reality. Because when our church partners say, hey, those online experiences and those parent guides and those Zoom calls, small group virtual meetings, are you going to continue to do those, for next month and next month? And our answer's been, yeah, those things are going to be available until Jesus comes back, right? Because we just know like this is our new reality. And until there's something else that will cause us to shift to do something that's going to be more effective, this is new. This ain't going away. This isn't a limited time offer. This isn't only good during COVID. We just know like this is now our new normal because it's the church's new normal.
Yeah, and even previous to COVID-19 shutting churches down in terms of meeting in person, and then there's like the in-between and all that, and post, there's also the truth that a year ago, 5 years ago, like the average family was coming a third of the time or a fourth of the time, maybe half the time, for if your church had a pretty high frequency, maybe they were there half the time on average. So the idea that like the family that came 2 times that month could also have engaged online the other 2, that's pretty cool too, which I don't, it seems like something we totally should have been doing for years, but at least now we're here, right? That's good.
Yeah. I mean, the blessing of COVID, if that's something that can be said, is that it's forced our hand as churches. And you're right. These are things that we probably should have implemented years ago. These are things that we should have been thinking about, dreaming about, praying about, and planning for years ago. But again, when you're in it and you're Sunday to Sunday, like you're like, yeah, we need to be thinking about that, but you don't ever get the time or the space or the margin to be able to sit there like, what would it look like? And this shut down the world, right? And it caused us to like be at home and had lots of time to think. And so it's kind of one of those things like, while COVID has been one of the biggest challenges for the church, it's also been one of the biggest opportunities for the church to engage the families with us, the families in our community, the families that come every once in a while, and then the families that never may step foot in your door, but have questions about God, have questions about Jesus, have questions about faith.
I want to end kind of shifting gears and talking about your experience as a family. We were talking a little bit before we recorded about what it was like for your kids, because all of this digital strategy and leveraging online for kids ministry, student ministry is really, really important. But it's all just another tool, another mode or method. Yep. It's not like the thing. It's just a way to carry out the thing. So, and I think what you're experiencing in your family is a reminder of what really matters most. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the church that we attend, again, we haven't met since I think they shut it down sometime late March, early April, and the plan is not to meet again until next year, which is like, okay, so we're gonna be digital for the rest of 2020, and who knows, maybe longer than that. And again, I have a son in middle school ministry, 7th grade, and my daughter is in 4th grade. And so when this whole thing started, our church pivoted and went to online experiences for kids and for middle school and for high school, and it was great. And the videos were great. We watched them together as a family, which that was a busy Sunday. I'm not gonna lie to you, because like you got to watch service with your spouse. Here's the adult
Yep.
service. Then we watch the service with our kid. Then we watch the service with our middle schooler. And by the Sunday afternoon, I was ready for a nap because I was churched out. I was just like, my goodness, that's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to watch, but it was great. But like every other family and like every other church, our engagement with just video began to wean a little bit and began to fade. Where my son, and he was a part of a small group. So where our church is at, you're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you have the same small group leaders with you in the same small group that journey with you through your middle school years, which is amazing. And I love that strategy for that. So there was already relational equity. There was already history from his 6th grade year that he finished up. And then we were going into 7th grade. And so they would have weekly Zoom calls. So at their same time, they would meet on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock, and they would gather together, and it'd be probably, anywhere from a 20, maybe a 30-minute Zoom call. And at first, those Zoom calls were just, again, trying to control and rein in, 12 to 15 middle school boys is no easy task whatsoever. And so we wouldn't try to listen in because we were trying to give our son freedom, because we're in that, he's a middle schooler, he's 7th grade, but we still care about what you are doing. And so we put him in like one of our rooms and shut the door, but be within earshot to kind of hear what's going on and try to stay engaged with him. But it was a relational touch point for him to see his friends, to see his small group leaders, to do that. And what they also did throughout this whole pandemic is that they, in addition to the Zoom calls, they would try to plan a couple of outings with the kids. Now, obviously, this didn't happen until the last couple of months, because those first 2 months, everybody was pretty much on lockdown around here. But once the restrictions started to lift and wearing masks and all that stuff, they said, hey, we would just love to get together with the boys. It's been a long time. And so they planned an outdoor hike where they were able to socially distance and wear their mask and do all that. But it was great. I mean, it was just like, it was so needed. It's one of those things like you don't realize you need until it happens. And so going to drop him off at this place where they all met, and to see familiar friends, and to be able to laugh and goof off and climb to the top of this hike and take these pictures and just have this moment as a parent, I love that. And I was just like, thank you guys for doing this. And I know you've got your own worries as small group leaders, you've got your own families, you've got your own responsibilities. And so to do this for my son, to do this for the group is just impactful. And then recently, the last, I think about like 2 weeks ago, they had kind of like a back to school, because our school started this week. And so they were wanting to do a back to school bash for the kids. And so we met at the church property, and my son's small group leader is the facilities director at the church. So we get a little extra perks with that. And they wanted to do a slip and slide. So they got this giant tarp that they put on the hillside. Our church has like a little hillside right there. And they turned on the sprinklers and got it all wet and did all this stuff and had a cookout. And it was just amazing. Parents were invited. And again, it was a small group. There's probably maybe 25 of us total. And again, we were able to socially distance and have fun. But it was just amazing, because there was the consistent relational touch point, whether it was in person occasionally or it was digitally every week. And then one of the kids in my son's small group, his parents were separated and had been separated for some years, but his father passed away 2 weeks ago. And so our small group leaders were able to communicate with the small group and just say, hey, just let you know, his Zach's dad passed away, and we wanted to do something for him. So pray for him, but we're putting together this basket for the family. And if you guys could write cards. And so my son and everybody wrote a card, and we all dropped it off at the small group leader's house. And he was able, just the ministry that was able to happen, the care that was able to happen, the relational touch points, again, from the weekly Zoom calls to the in-person gatherings, all of that has been like, we haven't missed a beat. You know what I'm saying? And on my daughter's side, complete opposite. And again, I get it, because it's kids and elementary kids and Zoom meetings, and how do we do that? And what's the safety protocols, and how do we blah, 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 and how do we get them and do all this stuff? But it's just been videos after video, after video, after video. And honestly, during the summer, my daughter, it was a struggle for us to get her to say, it's time to watch the video again. And what would have been better is to say, hey, there's a Zoom call you're going to have, and your small group leaders are going to be there along with the girls in your small group. And again, I know it's more complicated in kids' world, but I would encourage church leaders to not just settle for video. That needs to be a part of it. It is a part of reaching kids and reaching families, but there's got to be engagement more than that. And if you can't do Zoom calls, then how about a phone call, or how about a card, or how about a letter, or how about a drive-by and honking the horn? Hey, we just want to say we love you. We're missing you. We hope you're doing well. But I just think it's got to move beyond just video, because video can only do so much. We are wired to connect with each other relationally. That's true for adults. That's true for middle schoolers, but that's especially true for elementary age kids too, as well.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's a good reminder. I think it's the need to have the digital and the relational still together. It's not like it's either
Yeah.
or whatever. And you guys have championed small groups, and what you described for your son for forever. You know, the idea that we should have small groups and consistent leaders, and by the time they're in student ministry, it's a lot of times it's multiple years. You know, all middle school. We do that in our church, and that in our church too. That was a head start. Now we've done small groups for kids forever. So we've
Yeah.
had that head start there too, but you're right that like the autonomy, I guess, of those groups is not the same. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The idea that they would just, that leader for kids would go, some would, some wouldn't. So
Yep.
we've had to lean in more there as a staff and raise the bar for that, because you're right, the need is a little different, but it's kind of the same for those kids,
It's
just like it is
it
eighth
it, it
grade, 10th grade.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think again, the challenge, but the opportunity that this is bestowed upon us as churches is that COVID has exposed the priority that we put on small groups for kids and for students. If it was a priority in your church, and what I mean priority, not just saying priority, but you were arranging and you were leading and you were training, like you were having intentional small groups where a consistent leader showed up with a consistent groups of kids or with students, and you planned your ministry around that. If you were doing that, then when COVID hit and you moved to digital, you probably didn't miss much of a beat, you know, because like with my son and his middle school small group, they've been meeting together for a year, and they met every Sunday, same kids and same adults, and not all the kids came all the time, but there was enough relationship there so that when we moved to digital, we were just changing the way that we connected. It wasn't like, oh, we're meeting for the first time. Who are you? And this is weird. I don't know you, and I have to talk to you, and you're a stranger, and who are these kids, and this and that. And so, but there are some churches that, you know, maybe we said that we believe in small groups, but the way that we arranged our ministries, it was inconsistent leaders meeting with inconsistent groups of kids. And now that we aren't able to meet together anymore, it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so what leaders found then was like, the best thing for kids is a relational connection somehow. And they've discovered that as children's pastors, but they also realized that I can't do this for every kid. So the blessing in this is that I've seen a lot of churches who maybe didn't have a small group structure before. They're like, when we start being together again, because COVID's caused us to clear the deck, right? It's like, you know what? If you were battling old systems and this and that and old traditions at your church, the good news is you haven't met for 3 or 4 or 5 months. So there's really no more traditions to go back to. And you're starting with a clean slate. And now you have the opportunity to build a new foundation built on relational connection in small groups. So that's exciting. It's a challenge, but it's an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great opportunity. I want to ask as we wrap up, thank you so much for doing this. Before I ask that question, I just appreciate everything you and the Orange team does. We've used every bit of what you just described, and we've used Orange since we started our church. So almost 15 years now. And knowing many of you personally, I know your hearts. I know the sacrifices you've made during this season to serve churches, both personally and the amount of work, but even financially. You're a nonprofit, but you got a lot of employees that you care for their families, and there's sacrifices, right? When you give away things for free and you're not making money for a long time, and COVID shuts down the conference. I mean, there's just a lot people probably don't even see. So I just want you to know I appreciate that. And I also know you have like 30 websites with Orange. And so what's like the one website you'd say for people to learn more about all the stuff we talked about? Where should they go? 1 or 2 sites?
Yeah, I would go to orangekidman.com. That is the site where we want to help serve the Kidman community as a whole. So we have resources there for anybody, whether you use our curriculum or you use our music or you don't use anything at all. But we have some resources on there that we hope would bless you. And then from there, if you are interested in maybe learning more about our curriculum, other stuff, there are links on there. There are blog posts on there. There are places that will take you to learn more, to do a free trial with our curriculum. But orangekidman.com is the number one place that I would recommend. We also have a podcast that's on there too. So all sorts of resources to help you no matter what. And again, that's just our heartbeat. We want to be able to help the local church win when it comes to discipling kids and discipling families.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thanks for taking the time to share with us.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it, Nick.